My name is Amelia Bennett. I have been getting stalked for the past 7 years. The first time when I noticed about getting stalked, I told police about it, but they could find anything, and I thought that I'm imagining things. I was walking home from office when I first noticed someone following me. I turned around and no one was there, so I ran to my house and locked the door from inside, because I had no idea if he or she followed me to my home or not. By the next day, I forgot about it, and when I was taking a shower, someone started ringing the doorbell. I thought if I don't open the door, they will leave, but the doorbell kept ringing. I immediately got out of the bathroom, dressed up, and went to open the door. It was still ringing. I opened the gate in frustration, but no one was there. Instead, there was a small package on my door. After picking it up, I locked the door again. I opened the package and there was a picture of me holding a beer and sitting on the bar counter. There was a note inside as well. I opened it and it said, "You look hot as hell, my Amelia." I panicked. The incident from yesterday started to rewind itself in my mind. I immediately called 911 and reported it. They told me to calm down and they will look into it. For the next few days, there was no other package that I received, but wherever I went, I felt like someone's following me, and every time I turned around to check, I found no one. Few months passed and the police couldn't find anyone. They told me that the gift must be from someone I know, and I may have gotten scared by my own imagination. No matter what I do, I couldn't help but think that he must be around me every time. I could never see the face of the stalked, but sometimes I saw a guy with a plum jacket with a picture of Black Snake over it. My friends started to worry about me and told me date. Their solution was you can get romance and protection at the same time, but I wasn't ready to date. I started receiving more packages, and it all contained some dirty, cheap lines. One time I received a bra and the note said, "Your breasts would look amazing in this, my Amelia." His every letter contained the word "my Amelia" in them, and it was creepy. I was at work thinking about these things when my friend came looking all worried. They asked me if I'm okay. I told them about the situation, and their solution, as always, was to date. They dragged me to a nearby coffee shop and we started talking about office and made fun of our boss. I got distracted from the stalker for that period of time. That was when I took a sip of my coffee and noticed it wasn't my order. I remembered there was another guy whose order was with me. I had already taken a sip, so I thought I should let it be. But my friends forced me to go there, saying the boy is cute. I went there and apologized. Surprisingly, he exchanged the trays without even saying anything. I was talking with my friend when one of them pointed, "Look, that cute guy is leaving. You should totally exchange numbers. Go and say you want to pay for his Americano." I denied, but they practically forced me to. I went there and asked for his number hesitantly. He gave it to me and left. We went back to work. Before leaving, my friends reminded me to call him, and I took their advice. I called him and let him know my number. I didn't know what else to say, so I disconnected the call. The following evening, I received another package with letter. I was distressed. That's when I thought of my friends telling me that a boyfriend can protect me. I dialed the number of that boy and started talking to him. His name was Daniel Park. He seemed nice, easygoing, so I started to like him. One day when I was leaving from the library, I noticed someone following me. I couldn't see him, but I was still terrified. I immediately called Daniel for help. He told me he was nearby, and I felt a bit relieved. When he came, I asked him to walk me home, and when we reached, I called him because I was still scared. I told him my story, and at the heat of the moment, I ended up having sex with him, and it felt as if I forgot about the stalker completely. After that, every time stalker made a move, I called Daniel over. But as time passed by, I started noticing things about Daniel which were similar to the stalker. One time, while we were having sex, he accidentally called me my Amelia, but after that, he never called me that, as if he was being careful about it. Another incident that I noticed recently was when I was talking to him about Stalker. He jokingly said, "What if he is just your secret admirer?" I felt weird, but the thing that made me even more doubtful towards him was his handwriting, which was identical to the handwriting of the stalkers. Today, when I was in my garden, I noticed the stalker placing something outside my house. I hid and took a picture. When I zoomed in, I noticed the tattoo on the back of his palm. Daniel had the exact same tattoo. I called Daniel telling him about the stalker and asked him to come over. After that, I called 911 and told them about the picture of the stalker. Daniel was on his way to my house, and so was the police. I just got back from Amelia's and unlocked the door to my house and entered. After hanging my coat on the side rack, I went in the kitchen. I opened the fridge and took out cans of beer and the cold fried chicken that I ordered earlier. I started to think about Amelia while drinking cold beer. Amelia is my friend from the last 7 years. When I first became her friend, she told me that she has been getting stalked, but she doesn't know who the stalker is. Let me tell you from the day we first became friends. I was sitting in a coffee shop enjoying the atmosphere and reading a book that I had recently bought from my favorite bookstore across the town. It was about self-love and how you can inspire others to love. It was a fascinating book. That was when she walked out of the bathroom and sat on the table behind me. She was with some of her friends. They were talking about work-related problems and how much they hate their boss to overwork them. I had just started to get focused on their conversation when the counter boy called, "Order number 188 and 189, please receive your orders." My order was 189, so I got up and went ahead to pick it up. 2 similar-looking trays were sitting there on the counter as I was about to pick up my order. She came and picked it up while saying, "I'm order number 188. She looked at me with her deep green eyes and took the tray while smiling, which, by the way, was my order. I could not help but stare. Her wavy, silky black hair were bouncing on her back as if they were dancing on a rhythm. She was wearing a teal dress which was barely covering her knees. It was definitely her pear-shaped body. I grabbed the other tray and walked to my seat. I thought I should go and tell her that she had grabbed the wrong order, but I hesitated. That was when someone tapped me over my shoulder. I turned around, and it was her. "Sorry, I accidentally grabbed wrong order. Would you mind switching?" she said with a smile. I looked at the tray she was holding, and there was a lipstick mark on the cup. She saw me looking at the mark and said, "I actually took a sip without paying attention. I can change it if you want. But I'm not very fond of Americano, so you can give me my order back." She laughed nervously and looked at me with pleading intent. I nodded and exchanged the tray. I just took the cup without asking to change. She thanked me and went back to her table. When I was about to leave, she stopped me at the exit. "Can I have your number? I swear, it's only so that I can pay you back for your Americano." I laughed at her nervousness and gave her my number. After about half an hour, I received a call from an unknown number. I picked it up, and it was a soft voice of a girl. I immediately recognized it was her. "Hi, it's Amelia. You gave me your number in the coffee shop. I have just called to let you know that it's my number." After saying that, she disconnected the call. I again received her call at night. She told me that she just wanted to thank for earlier, and we talked for a while. For that day on, we started to talk on a regular basis and became friends. One day, when I was near the library in the evening, she called me. "I think someone is following me. Can you please come over here?" Her voice was trembling. I asked her where she is, and the address she told me was just 2 blocks away. "Don't panic, I'm nearby. I'll be right there." I went there, and she was looking all freaked out. She noticed me, came running toward me, and hugged me. She started sobbing and talked at the same time. "I was walking from here and felt like someone was following me. I couldn't see him, but I know someone was." I patted her back slowly and told her that everything will be fine. She told me that she lived nearby and asked me to walk her home. As we reached her house, she invited me in. I noticed that she lived in the same area as me, and when I told her that, she looked shocked. She asked me to feel at home and went to her kitchen. After a while, she came back holding a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. She sat at the chair next to mine, poured wine into the glasses, and gave one to me. As we were drinking wine, she started to cry. I asked her the reason for her crying. She told me that someone's been stalking her for the past few months. She told me that she never saw her stalker's face except for his plum jacket that has a picture of a snake over it. She also told me that the stalker sometimes sends her gifts along with letters. She showed them to me. There was a picture of her from a party in a sexy black sleeveless dress. There was a heart-shaped chocolate box, a dress, etc. Letters contained praise for her beauty. She embraced me and started to cry even more while telling me. I held her tightly in my arms, but she pulled away. She looked into my eyes, came closer, and kissed me. "Can you make me forget about it?" she said after kissing, and then again smashed her lips over mine. After making out for about an hour, she took me to her bedroom and started to undress me. We had sex the entire night. I told her she can call me for help whenever she needs help. We never got into an official relationship. We stayed friends with benefits. Whenever she felt like someone's following her or the stalker sends her gifts, she called me over. We would talk and then have sex. It's been 7 years and the stalker's identity still hasn't revealed. I let her use me as she pleases because I am in love with her. While I was thinking all this, my beer was already finished. My phone started to ring and I knew it was her without even looking at it. I answered the call and her voice, she was panicked. "I just received another gift from him. Can you please come over?" I looked to the snake picture on my plum jacket that was hanging on the rack and said to Amelia, "Don't worry, I'll be right there." It was the 3rd summer of our relationship when he asked me to go on vacation with him. Wesley was a rich guy and he had his own beach house. He wanted to take me there for an entire week to spend quality time together. I knew what he wanted. He was going to break up with me because I was his friend before coming into a relationship with him. Every time he took any of his past girlfriends to that beach house, they would later end up breaking up. I could not understand the reason. We were having a nice relationship without any problem. On top of that, I was thinking that we were starting to fall for each other. But this suddenly rose many doubts in my mind. "Honey, what are you doing here this early in the morning?" Wesley opened the door and asked while rubbing his eyes. I did not realize that I came to his house while lost in thoughts. I checked the time, and it was 4:30 a.m. "I couldn't sleep, that's why," I replied while walking into his house. He hugged me and asked if everything was okay. I simply just nodded my head and told him that he could go back to sleep, but he grabbed me by my waist and pulled me closer. "You came at a very critical time, love. You look irresistible to me now." After saying that, he kissed me and picked me up. He carried me to his bedroom and started to make love to me. I loved every second of it, and I did not want to end this ever in my life. The love that I was feeling for him was real, and I could not imagine my life without him being in it. After the sex, I fell asleep in his bed, and he did not wake me up. The next day, I woke up in the afternoon, freshened up, and went outside the bedroom because I was feeling hungry. When I got to the kitchen, I saw him serving lunch for the both of us. He came closer and kissed me. My eyes teared up because the more he treated me this well, the more scared I was feeling that I was going to lose all of this. "What happened, my love? Why are you being emotional?" he asked. I just shook my head and smiled. He kissed my eyes and we started eating. That was when he asked, "You did not give me an answer about the beach vacation, and I was thinking that we should go this weekend." My face went blank, and I nodded my head in agreement, even though I did not want to. I did not prepare at all for the vacation, and when he asked, I just told him that I'd forgotten. But surprisingly, he said that he knew I would forget, and he packed my stuff for me. He looked serious about this breaking up stuff. I guess that must be why he was so eager to take me to that cursed beach house. I was getting annoyed with him at this point. Even though I loved him with all my heart, I wanted to scream at him and argue with him for doing this. But I could not gather enough courage to do that. We drove there, and he took our luggage inside the beach house. He asked me to come inside, but I told him that I wanted to explore the beach first and that I will come back later. He went inside to unpack our things, and I went ahead to the beach. There was no one there, and it was evening time. I was thinking that how would I be able to handle it when he would tell me that he wants to end this, and how should I deal with this? I was so lost in my thoughts that I did not realize someone sneaking up behind me and putting some sort of bag over my head. I started to feel suffocated and panicked. That was when I realized that there were other people too, and while one of them was tightening the bag over my head, someone grabbed me, put it behind me, and tied it. And after that, they picked me up and threw me inside somewhere, which I realized was the trunk of some car. I was feeling extreme terror and imagining so many horrible possibilities of this situation. Who were these people? Why did they abduct me? Organ trafficking? Sex trafficking? Was I about to get raped? I started having a panic attack, and I passed out. After a while, I woke up, and I was still in there. They were driving me somewhere. All of a sudden, the car stopped, and I heard the voice of some men who were whispering to each other, and that was when I heard this familiar voice. It was Wesley. "Did she see your faces?" he asked them. "No, she could not. Don't worry, she's fine. She's worth what you said," one of them said. I was feeling betrayed and scared by the guy that I loved this much was behind my kidnapping. I understood now why he was so eager to bring me to that beach house. It was so he could sell me off. That was when I started having another panic attack. And at the same time, those men picked me up, and while one of them removed the bag over my head, the other one untied me. As I was losing consciousness, I saw Wesley all dressed up on the opposite side of the beach from the beach house, which was decorated in roses, and he was kneeling with a ring in his hand. Before passing out, I saw his expression change as he ran toward me. I woke up in the hospital, and he was sitting near the bed. His other 3 friends were standing behind him with apologetic expressions on their face. As I saw him, I was feeling relieved that 2 of my suspicions were wrong today, and even though I did not have enough energy to speak, I said it. He looked at me with a confused expression and told me that he could not hear me. I brought his ears closer to my mouth and I said, "Yes, I will marry you." As I said that, he started to cry. That was the most horrifying, and yet, one of the best experiences of my life. My father was an operation manager at NASA, and even I don't know what the real work he did there was. He said that it was completely classified, so he couldn't really discuss anything work-related with anyone. My mother left him a year ago, and I do go to her place, but I live full-time with my father. The very reason was that there was too much freedom when it came to living with father, because there was no one to stop me from doing anything. So I stayed with father, and he was way much cooler than my mother was. Then he decided to go up and mess up the perfect arrangement we had. He met some woman named Svetlana in a bar, and he decided to hook up with her. My dad was a nerd, but the girls he was hooking up with were hot, and this Svetlana girl was way too hot for a nerd like him. The first time I saw her, I was definite that she wanted to kill me, and much more, it seemed like she was scanning for things in the house. I wonder to this day what she was looking for, the very first day that she hooked up with my father. My father always said that he was too cool for these girls, and I always had a weird doubt about the confidence that he had. I decided to check up on Svetlana on the internet, and as I did, her profile was the most constructed profile there could be. She had the perfect white girl Instagram, and what I found undoubtedly suspicious was that her Instagram profile didn't match the personality that she had. But then everybody on the Instagram seems to be fake as they can be. When I confronted my father that I had doubts about this girl, he just ignored the doubts and told me to not mess around with that. I told him that she is not really the kind that you want to mingle with, knowing that she could be anyone, and my father's work was very confidential. I knew that talking to my father wouldn't really do anything, so I decided to confront Svetlana firsthand. I was making sure that she cracks under pressure when I investigate her, but that wasn't the case. She was early in the evening on Monday and arrived way before my father did. She was snooping around the house when I saw her and called her out and said, "Hello, little one," and she started walking towards me, and I was standing in front of her and could feel the coldness around her. I asked her, "What do you want?" And she said, "I don't want anything. How are you?" Her American accent wasn't very good, and I could see she was trying hard to keep it, but there was the Slavic roots in her language. I asked her, "What are your intentions with my father? Where are you from?" "Definitely not America." She smiled. "You are feisty. So many questions, little one. What is up with you?" And I said, "You could be anyone. Corporate espionage, national threat, spy, anyone. Give me your history and I will make my choice." And she smiled again and pulled her hairs back with her fingers and then said, "You watch too much Hollywood, kid." And then she put her hand on my leg and pulled me real close to her and kissed me and said, "It's all right, young one. I am not a threat to you." And then hugged me and said, "Believe me, I pose no threat." And she was pressing me against her body. I knew what she was doing. She was trying to seduce me so I would stop going after her. And then she said, "I will be here more than you could imagine. You will find out tomorrow." And then she kissed me again and left. My father came back and I told him everything, and I even said, "You should get her behind bars. She's definitely a spy. She tried to seduce me, father." And then he said, "She is just trying to connect with you. She's not seducing. She's trying to get close to you. Listen, let it go. She's going to be your new stepmom." That was enough to piss me off. I was quiet, and I decided that I'm not going to let her get married. She and father started preparing for marriage, and for once, father was genuinely happy, but I wasn't, sure still. She was staying the night, and both of them would go at it every night and irritated me. I would often catch her snooping around the house late night in her robe, and every time I caught her, she had an excuse. I was sure that I won't let this woman be my new stepmom. I was pretty sure that she was way more weird than me. She would hug me whenever I tried to confront her. She hugged me or kissed me or just got weirdly physically intimate. Her jig was definitely up with her advances. I knew that she was hiding something, and I was ready to take her down. One day, while she was hugging me, I decided to play her game, and I held her and I said, "I get it. You want to marry him, but I just want you to take good care of him, and don't let him spend too much time with the NASA." "You're his girlfriend? What the hell are you talking about?" "I'm the one who is his girlfriend. We've been dating for almost a week now." The girl screamed at me, which seriously only pissed me off more. For those of you who are thinking, what's going on here? Then let me tell you that I am having a conversation with the girl I saw kissing my man. And now she had the audacity to talk back to me saying she is the girlfriend. I'm Cecilia Walker, and I'm a 20-year-old college dropout. I have been dating my boyfriend Alex for over 6 months, and today I found out that he is cheating on me. I have loved him with all my heart, and he betrayed me just like this. Is love nothing in this world? This world and the people living in it both are cursed. If it were up to me, I would eradicate every single one of these people from the face of the earth. I regret ever loving Alex. I met Alex in college before dropping out. I was in the second year of B-Arch, and Alex was in the final year. Most of our lectures were combined, so he was mostly in the same class as me, but I never took notice of him at first. I was one of those shy girls who would only focus on her own existence, and nothing or no one intrigued me. I was only a spectator of others' relationships and never had been in one myself. That day, I was alone in the class eating my lunch when I noticed a boy sleeping in the back seat. I knew who he was. He was the most popular guy in college, Alex. He was popular for being clumsy and handsome, but despite being popular, I never thought of him as someone interesting. He rubbed his eyes with his hand while sleeping. It was because his hair was messy and poking his eyes a bit, so I just went there and brushed it off with my hand. That was when I realized how handsome his face looked. So, he really is handsome how people say. That's what I was thinking. And I was staring when he suddenly opened his eyes, which made me flustered, and I immediately went back to my seat. It looked like he was about to say something, but the class bell rang and students started to enter. The next day when I reached the class, I saw him sitting in the next seat with mine. I walked slowly there and sat in my seat. After that, I took out my notebook and I started to focus on the lecture. I could feel his gaze over me, but he wasn't saying anything, so I completely ignored it and kept looking in my notebook. Let's date. I turned my head toward him in an instant. He was looking at me. I thought I must be hearing things. There were no way he would ever ask me to date him. I know you're not seeing someone, so there's no point denying it. Besides, I saw you yesterday checking me out. My entire body turned red when he said that. I did not say a word and kept staring at my book with my mind blank. Next few days, he started to follow me everywhere I go, asking me to say yes. It was not like I did not want to date him, but he was infamous for being a serial dater. I kept rejecting him, but he was so persistent that he just wouldn't let it go. What is it about me that is making you not even consider dating me? I was going to the library, and as always, he was following me. As he asked me this question, I stopped in my track and turned my head towards him. What do you think? You have earned yourself the title of serial dater. I glared directly in his eyes, and he burst into laughter. You know that my friends are the ones spreading these rumors about me. You don't really believe it to be true, do you? I felt a bit guilty because I did believe it, and it was also true that I never saw him dating anyone, or maybe I never noticed because I wasn't interested before. Just say yes. Trust me, you won't regret it. He looked at me with his cute puppy eyes, which made me smile, and he brightened up. I'll take that as a yes. After saying that, he went ahead to the class. I couldn't believe I got into my first ever relationship. I started noticing his every move without even realizing. His smile, his clothes, his smell, what cologne he was wearing when it's not his natural scent. I could notice it all. He switched his seat permanently and started sitting by my side. One day I heard some girls talking over Alex being so handsome and all, and the same day I saw Alex talking with a big smile on his face with one of those girls. I felt so jealous that I wasn't able to control my anger. When he came to my side, I asked him, "What was that about?" I pointed my finger towards the girl. "Why, is my baby being jealous already?" he asked playfully in a response which made me even angrier. "It was nothing, it's Agatha, she's just a friend." He sensed my anger and explained, but even that didn't subside my anger. The next day, Agatha did not come to class, and I did not care either. I was happy that Alex won't be able to talk to her anymore. But even after that, she completely stopped coming, so people assumed that she had dropped out. Almost 5 months passed, and it was finally the time when Alex was to get his graduation degree and was supposed to leave the college after that, which made me extremely sad. So I decided to drop out of college as well and stay with me. But when I asked him, and he got angry with me, saying I should focus on completing my graduation. Still, I persisted and finally dropped out. Alex wasn't happy about it. "I think we should break up." Alex called me out to meet, and when I reached there, the first thing he said was this. Why? What's wrong? I was nervous. I could not understand why he was saying something like that. I never knew when I asked you out that you would drop from college, jeopardizing your own career for me. I really like you, Cecilia, but I don't want to be the reason of your demise. I still could not understand what he was talking about, why he was asking to leave me. I wasn't doing something wrong. I was in love with him. Besides, he was the one who kept bothering me to date him, and now he was doing this? But I did this so I could stay together with you. I would continue my college later. Just don't do this, Alex. I pleaded with him, but he did not say anything except that he will talk about this later, and left. I wanted to ask him to move in with me, but I couldn't. It was our first fight ever, and I wanted to make up with him as soon as possible. The next day I got ready and thought of surprising him in his apartment, but as I was about to reach, I was Alex talking to another girl near his apartment building. I had flowers in my hand, which I crumbled. As the girl left, I immediately stomped over them. Who was she? Is that why you were asking to leave me? He looked annoyed by my questions. Come on, Cecilia, don't make a scene here. She's just my neighbor, and you know why I asked for a breakup. He walked away after saying that. Everything was just putting fuel in my anger. The next day, I got a call from Alex. I was so happy, but my happiness faded away as soon as I answered it. Did you do something to Brittany? She's missing from yesterday. So he called me to ask for that bitch. I don't know, Alex. Why would I do something to her? I disconnected the call after saying that. I guess our fight was going to drag out a bit longer before we make up again. After a week or two, I saw Alex kissing a girl in his parking lot when I went there to apologize to him because it had gone way too long. Every time. Why? Why must he do this to me? I thought, feeling extreme anger and throbbing pain in my chest. But this time, I decided to confront the girl first and not Alex. When she was going back, I stopped her in the way. I asked her why she is kissing my boyfriend, and what she told me surprised me even more that Alex had started to date this girl too. I showed the girl pictures of me and Alex together, which I guess pissed her off too. She wanted to confront him, but I asked her not to. You know what? Let's forget about that cheater. He has done this to me so many times that I don't even want to see his dirty, cheap face. Let's go to my place and have a little drinking party. She declined at first, but I am a pretty convincing person, so I managed to take her with me. Wow, I never knew your place was in such a secluded area, she laughed when she reached. Yeah, I'm pretty rich. I bought this place for me and Alex, but I guess he'll never be able to see it now, I said while unlocking the door. And as soon as we stepped inside, she started to look nervous. Why is it so dark in here? It looks like... I didn't let her finish her sentence and hit her on her head. She really thought she could get away by kissing my man. I dragged to the secret room in the basement and tied her in one of the poles. I sat there, waiting for her to wake up. After a while, when she woke up and looked around, I could tell by her face that she was horrified. Oh, them? The one tied to your right pole is Agatha, who tried to seduce Alex during college, so I made her this way. And the one tied on your left one is Brittany. She is here for almost a week now. Oh, don't worry, they are alive. Barely, but alive. I laughed out loud and went near her. Please, let me go. I swear I would break up with him and cut contacts with him. Just spare me, please. As soon as I ripped the tape off her mouth, she started blabbering. It wasn't something that I didn't hear from the other two. I simply took out the cutter and started to chop off her mouth from which she kissed Alex. The place was solid soundproofed, so her screams couldn't go outside from here. After I was finished with her, I texted Alex. Let's meet. I guess it's finally the time we break up properly. I was tired of his shit. I guess first love really is painful. I don't like Valentine's Day. Not because I have any problem with the occasion itself, but because of an experience I had in the past. I was 18 back then, and I was dating this girl, Georgia. She was very immature and beautiful girl, but she was into gothic stuff. I did not pay much attention to it, thinking it must be because of her age or something. You know how teenagers try to define their personality by showing it by how they look. She always wore black clothes, had several tattoos over her body, and always had this one weird black book in her which she never let anyone touch. We were in a soccer team, and my friends placed a bet that whichever one of us loses that practice match, the striker had to date the weird goth girl in our school. Unfair, right? But that's just how teenagers are. And I happened to be the striker who lost the goal, so that's how I ended up asking her out, and we started dating shortly after that. At first, I thought she was a bit creepy, but as time went by, I started to like her. The Valentine's Day was just around the corner, and I wanted to do something special for her, so I asked her what she wants. She told me that she would love if I could go over at her house to celebrate the Valentine's Day with her, so I agreed. On the Valentine's Day, I brought dark chocolates and black roses for her. I knew she would like them because of her intense love for the color black. She also had asked me to wear black attire, so I did as she said. After that, I went to the address she gave me. I had never been to her house before, so I never knew where she lived before that. As I went inside, I noticed that everything was black. The only night bulbs were on, so I thought she must be planning something romantic for me. But soon after, I was shocked to see that her entire family was there, and they were all wearing the same dark clothing. I thought this was supposed to be a date. Why are your parents here? I asked her, without letting anyone know about my nervousness. But Georgia gave me another surprise by saying that she wanted me to meet her parents before we take this to the next level. I got a bit nervous, but it also made me happy that she thought like that. Still, it was supposed to be the two of us, so I was feeling down. She said they will be gone after they are done with me. It felt a bit weird, but I was looking forward to spending some alone time with her. Her parents asked me some questions, and I answered them. They looked like they were satisfied with my answers, but then they told me to wait in the dining room because they had one final test for me. The dining room was huge. It had multiple tables with weird-looking candles, trays, and plates were weird-looking. And the most creepy and weird thing about the place was the rusty metallic blood-like stench. I started to feel goosebumps from that. There was no one in the room except for me, so I had this sudden urge to find out more about the place. I sneaked through the lane-looking hall and went near the room where the stench was the strongest. As I was about to open it, Georgia came and asked me what I was doing there. I was looking for the bathroom, I said to her, and she told me that there was a bathroom near the dining hall and took me there. After I came out from the bathroom, Georgia gave me something to drink which looked like orange juice, so I drank it. But as soon as I drank the juice, I started to feel dizzy. After that, I just passed out. When I woke up, I was tied over the dining table and there were multiple knives placed around me. The setting looked like there were going to be a huge feast, and I guess I must be the main course. I was still alone in the room, and I could hear faint voices coming from outside where they were trying to discuss who will be eating which organ of my body. I had started to feel the terrifying sensation taking over my body, and I felt like I would pass out from the extreme fear I was experiencing at the moment. I struggled and struggled to get free from the ropes, but it was too tight, so I could not. Soon after, I heard some footsteps coming over to my direction, and as I looked up, I saw Georgia and her mother holding knives in their hands. I clenched my eyes so that the pain would be bearable. But as I did not feel anything, I opened my eyes. "It was a prank, you dummy," Georgia said while laughing, while giving a high five to her brother and mom. They were thinking of it as the funniest prank they had ever pulled, but I was not feeling like that. I was still terrified because I could still smell the stench of blood coming from each direction. I tried faking my laughter, but I couldn't. All I was thinking about was that I had to leave this place as soon as possible. "You scared the shit out of me, Georgia," I said, while giving the most fake and awkward laugh to Georgia. I asked her if I could leave, and surprisingly, she let me go. I left as fast as I could, and after exiting from her house, Trust me, I had started to run. I threw up as long as I reached the next lane from her house. The next day, I broke up with Georgia because of an extreme trauma from that experience, which resulted in me experiencing series of nightmares about it. I think it wasn't a prank. They must have changed their mind about eating me. And even if it was a prank, it was the most terrible and cruel prank that anyone had ever pulled. I was set on a blind date by one of my friends. He also did not know the girl personally. Instead, she was known of his friend as well. My name is Zion Arthur. I am a 28-year-old chef in one of the finest hotels in Arizona. Due to my job and my hectic schedule, I'm never able to focus on my love life. When my friends asked me if I was up for a blind date, I agreed, because it's not like I'm getting any younger, so I had decided to date. He gave me her contact card and told me to inform her when I reached there. As I reached the restaurant, I met this young girl. She must be around 22 or 23 years old. Her name was Samantha. We had a nice conversation about each other's life. She was the one asking most of the questions, and I was simply answering and sometimes throwing a counter question to her. We ordered spaghetti and wine for the dinner, and everything was going smoothly. I liked her. She seemed nice. After that, we decided to be in touch with each other and decide the next date among ourselves. As I exited the restaurant, it had started to rain. It never rains in Arizona around this time of the month, so I did not have an umbrella with me. I tried to call a cab or taxi something, but they were all canceling due to heavy rain. So I decided to take the subway and walk in rain till then. As I was on my way, I noticed someone following me. I looked back and there was someone in a black hoodie. He was walking to a safe distance from me, so I thought it must be my imagination, and that person also must be stuck in the rain. But I could think it after noticing that he was getting closer to me and going to the same direction as me. So I decided to check it, and I took a different turn, but that person also did. I thought I should confront him, and as I turned, I suddenly got attacked from behind. That person had a knife, and it stabbed me in my palm as I tried to protect myself. I flipped the hoodie, and it was Samantha. "Why?" I asked with a confused expression on my face. "Because you killed her. Don't you remember? It rained just like today that night," she said with a disgusted look on her face, which was obviously for me. But I could not understand, how did she know about this? I was so sure that nobody had seen me kill Lily. I made sure that no one was there at the time. It was 5 years ago. I met Lily during the internship program. She was a gorgeous girl, and as soon as I saw her, I went crazy about her. I wanted her to be mine, but she was in love with this Marcus guy who was a newly appointed chef at the hotel. We were interns. I asked her multiple times to just forget him and date me instead, but she never agreed. So I came up with a plan. I thought if she just goes on just one day with me, I would show her how much I love her and she would become mine. I went her and gave her a challenge. "Lily, just one day. And if you don't fall in love with me by then, trust me, you won't be getting bothered by me anymore." Lily was experimenting with a new dish. She always did that. She loved experimenting and coming up with new ideas. That was a plus point about her, and if I were to date her, I was sure she would be more than happy to share her recipes with me. She looked at me with a raised eyebrow. "Do you promise that you won't bother me after this date?" she asked, and I convinced her that I won't. We decided to meet at a different restaurant for dinner, and I told her the time. I went there ahead of time and prepared flowers, music, and the most expensive wine for our date. I asked the owner of the restaurant to play the music on my signal. Everything was perfect, and I was waiting for her to come. She reached there at the time, and we started to have dinner. I gave them the signal and bent on knees. "Will you be my girlfriend, Lily?" I had flowers in my hand, and the perfect music was playing by the personal musician I had hired. But she laughed and said no. I felt humiliated. "You told me just one date, Zion. Has it ended or is there something else?" she asked me while laughing. I was feeling humiliated and enraged, so I said there was another surprise for her in another place. I took her far away from the people near an abandoned factory. She started to look nervous, but I told her not to worry, and there's a huge surprise coming up next. She looked scared and asked to go, but I knocked her on the head and she fainted. I took her inside the building and waited for her to wake up. As she woke, I started to rape her. As she was going to pass out from all the screaming and pain, I banged her head in the nearby fallen rock. I thought she would wake up from the pain, but she got unconscious. I continued raping her, and when I was finished, I tried to wake her, but I noticed that she had died. I took her phone and threw her body in a deep pit that was in the abandoned factory. I threw some huge rocks over her, so if anyone were to find her body, they would think that she died due to the injuries by rocks. I had already taken her back, and I checked it had a black diary inside. I remembered that she used to write her recipes in a black notebook which she used to take everywhere she went, so I took it with me. You still thinking how I found out that you killed her? That day she told me that she was going on a date with some guy, but she never said the name. She went missing after that, and I started searching for her. It was a nice move that you did not tell anybody that you were meeting her, because no one knew when I asked around. Her body was found after 2 years. I was still looking for her then, and when her body was found, her phone and her cookbook was missing. Since I'm her younger sister, I have tasted each one of her recipes, and luckily 2 months before this day, I went to the hotel you're working and tasted one of the signature dishes on the menu, which was the same recipe as my sister. When I investigated a bit deeper, I found out you were interning with her around that time, and you had a crush on her. My face started to turn pale as she told me. I could not think of anything else except that I needed to kill her now. I tried taking the knife from her hands, but she pinned me down. Not so fast. I did not take training for 3 years so that you can kill me so easily. I was struggling and feeling helpless. That was when I heard the sound of police sirens coming from a distance. I took a deep sigh and closed my eyes, waiting for my judgment of the crime I committed on that rainy night. This happened when my sister and I were about 6 and 8. We are now 43 and 45, me being the eldest. And it is something that still haunts us occasionally. We had an amazing municipal swimming pool in our neighborhood. South Africa summers in Johannesburg are hot and long, so the swimming pool was the ultimate destination. Joe was the adult that was always at the pool. He would swim lengths, practice diving, and tickle our feet under the water. Just typing this makes me feel nauseous. To this day, I still have issues with my feet being wet. Specifically, I am unable to leave cream on my feet. The sliminess makes me claustrophobic. I only realized the connection last year. Whenever we would sit on the edge of the pool with our feet hanging in, he would swim past all of us and tickle all our feet in a row. Now, I can't remember all the details, but someone playfully screamed, "Oh no, Joe!" And Joe did it again and sang, "Oh no, Joe, not again, Joe." We laughed as kids do. Then he tickled our feet again and made us sing his new song. "Oh no, Joe, not again, Joe." It became a game. He would grab us under the water and we would sing. It went from feet tickling to chasing us and grabbing our waists under the water. The song never went away. One day at the pool, Joe told us that he had this amazing farm just out of town, and he would like to take us to see his animals, his mealies, which is corn, and his own swimming pool. It sounded like heaven to all of us. He was talking to several children, boys and girls, and he told us to be at the swimming pool on Saturday, but not to tell our parents. We will go in his car. As soon as we got home, though, we told our dad everything as we were so excited, and the farm sounded amazing. Our dad said absolutely not and asked who this Joe was anyway. We told him that he was our friend at the pool and he plays with our feet and chases us around the pool. My dad said that actually maybe we could go, and he wanted to meet Joe first. Yay! The next day we went to the pool, and we told Joe that we could go with him, but our dad wanted to meet him first. Joe was upset that we told our dad, but we said not to worry, our dad's cool. So Joe walked home with us. We only live about 5 blocks from the pool and came to meet our dad. Now Joe is about 5'6" and my dad is 6'7", the personification of a gentle giant. My dad was very polite to Joe and asked him loads of questions about the farm. Where is it exactly? How many kids are going? Has he spoken to other parents? Joe was cool as a cucumber. He answered the questions smoothly and confidently, and my dad ended by saying to Joe that he looked forward to seeing him at his farm on Saturday. I think we will have a great time. I'll bring my girls though, and we will meet you there. Now the next part is a bit of a blur to me. I'm not sure how we ended up driving in convoy with about 3 other dads and their kids from the pool, but it was so exciting. My dad had the map book leading the convoy to the best farm in the world. We drove about an hour out of town when we arrived at a derelict farmhouse. No animals, no mallees, no swimming pools, just this run-down, isolated, scary-looking farmhouse in the middle of nowhere. I remember being really confused. My dad must have read the map book wrong. All the dads then huddled together, and we had no idea what they were saying, but they were really angry. We were angry too, as we were obviously lost, and it was the dad's fault. Everyone got back in their cars, and I started screaming at my dad about how he'd deliberately gotten us lost because he doesn't like Joe, and he didn't want us to have fun. My dad was silent and pensive, and after my tantrum, he said to my sister and I in a very calm, deep voice, "Joe is a bad man. He was going to hurt all of you. He is the bad man your mom is always warning you about. My mom is obsessed with true crime. There is no farm, and I'm so happy you girls told me what was going on because something bad could have happened to you." His strong voice broke in the last word. The gravity of his tone and the break in his voice made my sister and I realize immediately that he was right, and we were in danger. We cried and apologized, and he made us promise to tell him if we ever saw Joe again. Joe stayed away from the pool for about a month, but as soon as we saw him come through the gate, we quickly got dressed and ran home. When my dad came home from golf, we told him Joe was at the pool again. Then the next day we went to the pool with our dad. We were swimming, and my dad was sitting on one of the benches to the side. In walks Joe. He came to the edge of the pool and was calling to us. We refused to go to the edge, and he was getting frustrated. My dad then got up and walked over to him. "Hey buddy, can I have a chat with you outside real quick?" Joe physically shrunk. My dad had his hand on Joe's shoulder and was guiding him out to the pool. I can only imagine what my dad did and said to him. My dad is a gentleman, but don't mess with his girls. Joe was never seen again at our swimming pool. To give some context, every summer I would do some temp work for the company where my dad worked. It was an education company, so they always needed temp workers around in July and August time for all of the exam remarks that they had come in. It was my data entry work, but it suited me fine, and that meant I could earn a little extra cash while I was at university. I did this every summer from when I was 19 through when I was 23. And then I got another job at the same company for a bit after I graduated, but we'll get to that later. For now, all you need to know is that I was a reasonably familiar face there, and everybody knew I was my dad's daughter. The main downside of working there was that I'd clock off work at 5 p.m., but I'd have to wait for my dad to finish work since he was the head of an entire department. so he'd end up staying a bit later. Every day, I bring a book with me and sit in this little foyer area between his department and the department where I worked, since it had the most comfortable chairs. I must have been 22 years old when this happened, because it was the penultimate summer that I worked there. I had just had my hair cut short for the first time in my life, and I'd had it dyed red as well. I was sitting on these couches reading, when all of a sudden, this guy approaches me. Leon. Leon tells me that he works in my dad's department, and he thought he'd come introduce himself. This is a pretty common occurrence for me, and I was aware of this guy. He was young and decent looking, so a few of the women in my department had a crush on him. I was dating someone at the time though, and I'd never actually seen him in person, but I could see what they saw in him. He got to chatting, and he mentioned that I changed my hair, so I told him about cutting it short, and he cut me off mid-sentence. As this is where it started to get weird. He said, no, first it was brown and you didn't have a fringe, and then you went through that phase of curling it. Then you put the fringe in its indicted red. After that, you dyed it purple, and now you had to cut short and dad it back to red. This guy I just met was describing over 2 years worth of hairstyle changes that I'd had. I felt creeped out, but it seemed like a nice enough guy. And I guess I'd worked at the company throughout the entire time, so it was reasonable to assume that he'd noticed me before, and that should have been the first red flag. He asked me if I had Facebook, and I told him that I did, so he said that he would add me. That seemed pretty normal. But then, after he'd sent the friend request, he asked me to get my phone out so he could watch me accept the friend request. I'm British, and it's therefore impossible for me to be impolite. So I got my phone out and showed him that I had accepted it. I thought that might calm him down. Bear in mind, he wasn't a bad-looking guy, so I felt a bit flattered at this point that he was so keen on me. Then, sense of flattery dissolved real fast. After the Facebook thing, he kept asking me if I had MSN, and I told him that I didn't. I swear throughout this conversation, he asked me if I had MSN about 4 times. Then the final time, he was like, please, can you get MSN Messenger so we can chat after work? It was like he had something really urgent he wanted to tell me, but I'd only just met this person. I kinda laughed and said how I hadn't used MSN since I was a teenager without necessarily rejecting him. Then he said something like, well, if you don't have MSN, then you have Skype. This seemed like the perfect opportunity to bring up my boyfriend who was a foreign student and went back to his home country during the summer. He was the only person I spoke to on Skype. I said to Leon how I didn't have my own Skype account, but I used my dad's Skype account to talk to my boyfriend. I really thought this might ward them off. I was wrong. Without missing a beat, he said, can you please just get your own Skype account so we can video chat after work? He said it like I somehow was inconveniencing him, like this was something we'd agreed to do months ago or something. I had no idea how to react, so I just sort of smiled and laughed. Thank the heavens someone from my dad's department walked past at the moment, was like, Leon, are you meant to be at your desk? He scurried off pretty quickly after that, but not before reminding me to get my own Skype account and sent him the details. I told my dad about the whole exchange in the car ride home, but all he said was that Leon was very friendly and that a lot of women in his department liked him. So maybe I just misunderstood the situation. I thought he was probably right, so I tried not to let it bother me. Later that evening, however, I was on my computer doing university work when a message popped up on my face. Look, it was Leon on the message. Said was, we like the same movies. I don't know what it was, but something about this message freaked me out so much. I decided not to respond and logged off Facebook, hoping that he would notice I had been online. The next day after work, I was sat in my usual spot when Leon comes over to me. His face was like thunder. At first, I thought he was having a bad day and was walking through the hallway. But my heart dropped when I realized he was walking directly towards me. Why don't you respond to your Facebook message? I was stunned. How was I supposed to respond to that? Who says stuff like that in real life? Lucky for me, I didn't have an opportunity to respond because he started off on this tirade. I'm not even kidding. He started listing all of the movies we had in common, And then he had seen on my Facebook profile Batman, The Dark Knight, Watchmen, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, Fight Club. I just sat there watching him reel off all of these film titles. Once he was finished, all he said was, "It's okay, I forgive you," and then walked off back to his department. Over the next couple of weeks, he came and found me in my spot every day and talked to me, from the moment I sat down to the moment my dad came to get me. I don't remember many of the exchanges, but I do remember distinctly one day pretending to pick up my nose when I saw him coming to see if it would pull him off. It didn't. I got to the point where I'd get so stressed out after work that I'd go and hide in the toilets for as long as I could, but the women I worked with started to notice and think I was weird. Eventually, I broached the subject with my dad, and he gave me his car keys after my shift so I could go hide out in a car rather than the building. So I'm camping out in his car, and I'm still feeling quite tense. But after about 20 minutes, I start to feel at ease. Surely he won't come looking for me out here. Wrong. I looked over at the main entrance, and my heart drops. He is coming out of the door, and he's scrutinizing all the cars. I sank down as far as possible into my seat, but I wasn't fast enough, and he saw me. He comes rushing off and starts tapping the glass, so I open the door and ask him what's up. "I didn't see you in your usual spot, but luckily the doorman told me he saw you come out here. Why are your dad's car? Again? What am you supposed to say to that?" I told him I had a headache, so I'd come out to the car to take some persimenthol and see if I could get some sleep. At least he respected that because he told me to feel better and left me alone. I breathed a sigh of relief, knowing that I was only going to be working there for a few more days before I had to go back to university. I told my dad about the car incident, and he gave Leon a talking to the next day. Leon would still come find me in the foyer, but he'd only talk to me for a few minutes in passing before leaving me alone, and there was a big relief. On my last day at work there, I was fully expecting him to do something crazy, but he didn't even come to chat with me that day. I left the office and thought that I would never see him again. I found out he was fired not long after I left the company that year because he kept coming into work late and then spent most of his time at work chatting with his coworkers and me apparently. Fast forward to January of 2014, and I was preparing to move to China for a position teaching English. I graduated from university and I was working at the same company, but this time in a semi-permanent capacity. It was my last day of work, so I received quite a few gifts and some fuss from my coworkers. It was about 10 a.m. when who should I see walk through the door but Leon. He had been hired as a temp to do the job that I had done for so many years. As soon as he walked through the door, he saw me and this flash of recognition crossed his face. I wanted to slide under my desk and die. It came walking over me and was all smiles, asking about how I was and why I was still doing at the company. I was at the point that one of my coworkers mentioned how I was off to China soon. Leon seized on that and started talking about his friend who was also interested in TFL. His interest seemed genuine, so I got to talk about how I got my TFL qualification, who I got it through, what company I would be working with for on China, etc., etc. We chatted for about 20 minutes and he wrote down some details for his friend and went off to work. At the end of the day, I was packing all my stuff to leave and a few of my coworkers were coming over to say their goodbyes. Don't get me wrong, the Leon incident aside, I had a wonderful time working at that time. Company and I had made a lot of great friends out of the corner. My eyes see Leon approaching, but I think, what's the harm? He says goodbye and wishes me luck on my new adventure. Then, as I'm literally walking out the door of the department, I hear him call out, "See you in China." For the first 2 weeks of my teacher training over there, I was like a hawk, keeping a constant lookout for this guy. He never did follow me out to China, but it still remains one of the creepiest encounters of my life.